The Wisdom of the Ancients, by Francis Bacon. Chapter 28. Sphinx, or Science. Explained of the Sciences. They relate that Sphinx was a monster, variously formed, having the face and voice of a virgin, the wings of a bird, and the talons of a griffin. She resided on the top of a mountain, near the city Thebes, and also beset the highways. Her manner was to lie in ambush and seize the travelers, and having them in her power, to propose to them certain dark and perplexed riddles, which it was thought she received from the Muses, and if her wretched captives could not solve and interpret these riddles, she with great cruelty fell upon them, in their hesitation and confusion, and tore them to pieces. This plague having reigned a long time, the Thebans at length offered their kingdom to the men who could interpret her riddles, there being no other way to subdue her. Oedipus, a penetrating and prudent man, though lame in his feet, excited by so great a reward, accepted the condition, and with a good assurance of mind, cheerfully presented himself before the monster, who directly asked him, what creature that was, which being born 4-footed, afterwards became 2-footed, then 3-footed, and lastly 4-footed again. Oedipus, with presence of mind, replied it was man, who, upon its first birth and infant state, crawled upon all fours in endeavoring to walk, but not long after went upright upon his 2 natural feet, again, in old age walked 3-footed, with a stick, and at last, growing decrepit, lay 4-footed confined to his bed, and having by this exact solution obtained the victory, he slew the monster, and, laying the carcass upon an ass, led her away in triumph, and upon this he was, according to the agreement, made king of Thebes. Explanation. This is an elegant, instructive fable, and seems invented to represent science, especially as joined with practice. For science may, without absurdity, be called a monster, being strangely gazed at and admired by the ignorant and unskillful. Her figure and form is various, by reason of the vast variety of subjects that science considers. Her voice and countenance are represented female, by reason of her gay appearance, and volubility of speech. Wings are added, because the sciences and their inventions run and fly about in a moment, for knowledge, like light communicated from one torch to another, is presently caught and copiously diffused. Sharp and hooked talons are elegantly attributed to her, because the axioms and arguments of science enter the mind, lay hold of it, fix it down, and keep it from moving or slipping away. This the sacred philosopher observed when he said, the words of the wise are like goads or nails driven far in. Again, all science seems placed on high, as it were on the tops of mountains that are hard to climb, for science is justly imagined a sublime and lofty thing, looking down upon ignorance, from an eminence, and at the same time taking an extensive view on all sides, as is usual on the top of mountains. Science is said to beset the highways, because through all the journey and peregrination of human life there is matter and occasion offered of contemplation. Sphinx is said to propose various difficult questions and riddles to men, which she received from the Muses, and these questions, so long as they remain with the Muses, may very well be unaccompanied with severity, for while there is no other end of contemplation and inquiry but that of knowledge alone, the understanding is not oppressed, or driven to straits and difficulties, but expatiates and ranges at large, and even receives a degree of pleasure from doubt and variety. But after the Muses have given over their riddles to Sphinx, that is, to practice, which urges and impels to action, choice, and determination, then it is that they become torturing, severe, and trying, and, unless solved and interpreted, strangely perplex and harass the human mind, rend it every way, and perfectly tear it to pieces. All the riddles of Sphinx, therefore, leave 2 conditions annexed, viz., dilaceration to those who do not solve them, and empire to those that do. For he who understands the thing proposed obtains his end, and every artificer rules over his work. Sphinx has no more than 2 kinds of riddles, one relating to the nature of things, the other to the nature of man, and correspondent to these, the prizes of the solution are 2 kinds of empire, the empire over nature, and the empire over man. For the true and ultimate end of natural philosophy is dominion over natural things, natural bodies, remedies, machines, and numberless other particulars, though the schools, contented with what spontaneously offers, and swollen with their own discourses, neglect, and in a manner despise, both things and works. But the riddle proposed to Oedipus, the solution whereof acquired him the Theban kingdom, regarded the nature of man, for he who has thoroughly looked into and examined human nature, may in a manner command his own fortune, and seems born to acquire dominion and rule. Accordingly, Virgil properly makes the arts of government to be the arts of the Romans. It was, therefore, extremely apposite in Augustus Caesar to use the image of Sphinx in his signet, whether this happened by accident or by design, for he of all men was deeply versed in politics, and through the course of his life very happily solved abundance of new riddles with regard to the nature of man, and unless he had done this with great dexterity and ready address, he would frequently have been involved in imminent danger, if not destruction. It is with the utmost elegance added in the fable, that when Sphinx was conquered, her carcass was laid upon an ass, for there is nothing so subtle and abstruse, but after being once made plain, intelligible, and common, it may be received by the slowest capacity. We must not omit that Sphinx was conquered by a lame man, and impotent in his feet, for men usually make too much haste to the solution of Sphinx's riddles, whence it happens, that she prevailing, their minds are rather racked and torn by disputes, than invested with command by works and effects. The end.